to the Egyptian government team attending the ongoing World Bank and IMF meetings in the U.S., showcasing the country's recent policy experience that includes 600 basis point hike, 26% currency devaluation, and more. That was the focus of this fireside chat held today in Washington between the country's Minister of Finance, Mohamed Maid, and the IMF Director in charge of the Middle East and Central Asia, Jihad Azor. Take a listen.
Getting to where we are today, where the two reviews concluded successfully, with support that was augmented through the fund program, as well as also through some of the partners of Egypt. Walk us a bit through the kitchen of the reform implementation in the last few months, the challenges that you had to face, and the way you collectively dealt with those. I will ask you a couple of questions about the challenges going forward, but let's start a bit setting the stage on what has happened over the last few months. What were the main issues for you as Minister of Finance?
Thank you very much for the invitation, and sorry for being late. But let me say that for me, it's not the last 2 months. For me, it's the last 2 years. Because I believe with the first reform program with IMF, November 2016, which was a successful one, I believe Egypt was able to put itself in a very good position. But unfortunately, with COVID-19 in 2020, for 2 years. And we were assuming that after these 2 years, things will start to recover and will restore back what we have achieved from the first program. And thanks for the IMF, it supported us in 2020 in the second program to cope with the negative impact of COVID-19. But unfortunately, with this high inflation and the war in Europe and tightening monetary policy everywhere, which has had an impact on the outflow of the carry trade money, with many other shocks. It started with external shocks, but it combined with some impact internally. So the 2 years were very tough. But of course, since we got the program October 2022, and we were assuming that we will start recovery, but the shocks continued, and also the ability to address these external shocks with internal situation made the situation more complicated. And this is the reason why the first and two review were delayed. And I believe that we did not stop talking with the IMF over the period. But of course, the issue of flexible exchange rate, the issue of liberalization of the foreign currency situation, and also the issue of the public investment, the inflation, things went to in a very tough situation. But the last 3 months, we were very close. I believe that from December, January, we were very close with IMF for the program.
What are the next priorities for you as Minister of Finance on the fiscal side, on the fiscal stabilization side? And then maybe I will touch on the issue of a broader issue, the issue of the overall investment environment and so on. But if I look forward with you, what are the next milestones on the fiscal side, and what are the priorities? And I'm sure that many people here today would like to hear you on that.
Number one, and for the most, I have to coordinate with the central bank governor to bring inflation within the central bank target. I believe this is the most important for me. Why? Because I believe the fiscal situation is not bad. We have a discipline. We have been, since 2018, making a primary surplus. no one single year, even over COVID-19, we did primary balance. Even the debt to GDP, it went down from 103 to 80% or 81%. But so what I believe is now, number one, inflation has to come down within the central bank target, 7% plus or minus 2. Number two, to see interest rates coming down, because the most challenging point for me for managing the budget is the amount of interest payments I'm facing. Because without it, I should now have the budget deficit even around between 5 to 6 or even close to 5. Number three, I believe that I have to inject more for human development. I need to put more money for health, education, and supporting the economic sectors in order to be able to bring the growth back. Because now we are expecting to finish this financial year with a real growth rate of 2.8, which is not suitable for Egypt. Egypt population is growing at a high rate, which means that we need to be able to grow at 6 to 7%. This will not happen without all the economic situation is performing well, and we are going to target 4.2% for the coming financial year, helping the private sector to lead the economy. This will be the most important for us, is to ensure that the state will leave gradually, but at the same time, you have to ensure that the private sector will be able to take the leading role and to create the jobs and to make the economic growth. I believe these are the most important things, and I have to concentrate on that in the coming period.
Could you tell us a bit more on the last point you mentioned, how to grow the role of the private sector in the economy? And many have highlighted certain number of impediments to that. One is leveling the playing field. Two, that access to foreign currency, which has been resolved, and access to finance. And three, also the relative growing size of the public sector. What are the specific actions that you see now, especially that from a financial perspective, the situation has improved substantially, and also from an, I would say, positive sentiment. Positive sentiment has become predominant despite the glooms that are currently shadowing the situation in the region. What are specifically, what people should expect in the next 3 to 6 months on addressing some of the issues related to large public investment, public sector size, and so on?
As I said, one of the challenge is to restore trust and confidence of the private sector in the way forward. Number two is to ensure that with all the corrections we have made in monetary and fiscal policies, this will be lasting, this will continue, and will ensure that stability to macroeconomic will continue with our policy. Number three, we have to improve the investment climate and environment. And I believe we have taken many steps on that. Number one, removing all the preferential treatment for the state companies. And also, we have issued a law which has removed all the preferential treatment on taxes and customs for the state entities, and also the executive regulations has been issued. We have the state ownership policy, which I believe it puts the roadmap for how the footprint of the state will be gradually reduced. Number four, we have to continue with the IPO program, with the divestment of the state ownership in many sectors, which now I think more than 200 companies in the hand of the IFC to ensure that the program will continue. This will be critical also for not only for allowing the private sector role in the economy to increase, but for the budget, because we agreed that at least 50% of the proceeds will be used to reduce the state debt. So reducing the state debt with reducing inflation and reducing interest rate will help to release many spaces in the budget for the other objectives like health and education, and also addressing the level of poverty, particularly for those who were negatively impacted over the last.